Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today I gotta keep you updated on this Tiffany A. Henyard situation, the corrupt so-called super mayor that we've covered multiple times on this channel, from her scandals of hiring sex offenders, to her lavish vacations on the taxpayer dime, to her running up about $6 million in debt in the small town of Dalton that she's the mayor of, and $7 million in debt in Thornton Township, the largest township in the state of Illinois, simultaneously with no receipts for the expenses. But today, the situation appears to have come to a head. There appears to have been some level of accountability when Dalton supervisors are like, hey, nothing is being paid in the city of Dalton. Things are going awry, and you have to answer for this. So there was a fiery meeting between these representatives, and in response to the criticism in meeting A, Tiffany A. Henyard decided to take up a new tactic in meeting B, which we will also talk about in this particular video. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
Y'all forget I am the leader. They want to hear from the mayor. If y'all ain't learned that yet. The mayor, not the trustees that don't do nothing. That only run their mouth.
You know, it's hard to believe that Tiffany A. Henyard is a real person. It's hard to believe that this is an actual, tangible human being and not some character on a sketch comedy show. But I assure you, she is in fact real. I assure you, this is the person who went from just 6 years ago breaking into cars and being arrested for it in the city of Chicago to holding two significant positions of power that pay more than the governor of the state of Illinois.
Y'all don't do no work.
Y'all don't do no work. Yes, that is the exact attitude. That is the exact cadence. That's exactly what you want to hear from a public servant that is supposed to be representing her constituents and gets paid nearly $300,000. That is exactly what you would expect when you ask this person who is going on vacations to Las Vegas, spending over $1 million more than her predecessor on a security detail, billing insane overtime with that security detail, has hired a sex offender, and done all the crazy things that Tiffany A. Henyard has done that I've documented before that I can't get into now. That's the exact attitude you want to hear from that representative. And by the way, what this is over is the fact that they want her to give an accounting of how she's spending the money that they're appropriating. This is her reaction to basic questions that any executive would be expected to answer, but since Illinois is insanely corrupt, she is just screaming at them like a mad lady, and that's what we're seeing.
Tiffany Henyard considers herself something of a crusader, but one who's clearly annoyed by questions from a rebellious group of Dalton trustees who are in a standoff with her over spending.
At the end of the day, vendors are not being paid. Board approved it. The vendors are not being paid.
How about you be a good leader, bring RFPs to the forefront, so not just us, but the residents and everybody else in America know how the money is being spent.
So as you can see right there, the meeting is getting very heated. It's getting very testy. They're demanding that she give an accounting of how she's spending the money. And the reason this is so amazing and so absurd is because Tiffany A. Henyard has a proven track record of spending money on lavish vacations, or one of my absolute favorite ones, where she leased a vehicle with the taxpayer purse and ended up paying double the amount of worth of the vehicle.
I sat here and looked at a lease that y'all paying $149,000 for one of them trucks. You make absolute, that's like when you're 19 years old and you go get a car and the interest rate 27%. That makes absolutely no sense. You're
Please
not making
facts.
great finance. Excuse me?
Please state facts.
But let me tell you, here it is, dated December 27, 2022, the cash price of a 2023 Chevy Tahoe, $93,216.71. Interest and APR, $55,929.49. Total lease price, $149,146.20. Tell me if it's not facts, because your signature is all on it.
I don't see that.
Okay, but you want me to pay?
I don't.
All right.
I'll
But
get
at
my
the end,
statement in a
at
few
the
minutes
end
when
of
you
the
finish.
day, it's not about going back and forth with you. It's about making financial decisions that is in the benefit of everybody and just not one person. And you can't seem to understand that. Have a great day.
On the lease got an insane interest rates that's borderline illegal, and that is presented and expected to be paid for by the taxpayer, and Tiffany A. Henyard wants no questions to be asked about this.
WGN Investigates has cataloged tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars spent on trips, meals, and more by Tiffany Henyard and her allies in Dalton and on the Thornton Township Board, where she's the supervisor. Township credit card records show Henyard and other officials spent more than $67,000 on trips to Portland, Austin, Atlanta, and New York City. Many of the flights were first class.
So as you can see by this report, the travel expenses are ridiculous and absurd. And again, Tiffany A. Henyard makes nearly $300,000, so she could put up some of this money out of pocket, but she's not doing so. So just between July and November of 2023, she dropped $67,000 on first-class travel across the country with no actual work being done for her constituents. That's a crucial part of this. It's one thing if you're going over there and bringing businesses back, bringing jobs back, doing something for your constituents. I would still say that you got to fly coach, or if you're going to fly first class, you have to pay to upgrade it yourself. But Tiffany A. Henyard says, no, that's on the taxpayers. And what makes this even more disgusting is that while the Thornton Township is the largest township in the state of Illinois, that's one position that she holds, Dalton is a town of 20,000 people where the median income is $25,000. So she spent 3 times their median income in just a couple months period in order to travel and have a great time. And that isn't even getting in to the accommodations, which of course were also first class.
So were the accommodations. In Atlanta, Henyard and her team stayed at the Four Seasons Hotel, costing taxpayers more than $9,000. In New York, the bill came to $13,000. Henyard has refused to explain the specific purpose of the trips or why they travel in such style, but she appeared to refer to our reporting at Monday's Dalton meeting.
Now look, the Marriott Hotel in New York City depends on how many people she was traveling. That is not technically a 5-star hotel, but in the city of New York, especially when you're competing with all the illegal migrants that are being hoteled across the city, it's going to cost you a premium. And also, we don't know the length of the trip. However, the Four Seasons is a legitimate hotel. And by the way, they didn't show the hotels that she stayed in Vegas. We're talking Caesars, we're talking expensive and all that.
Township taxpayers also spent money on the Vegas trip on everything from steak dinners to hotels, and $3,741 just on Henyard's round-trip flight.
And it's just crazy to think that this woman is just incinerating the taxpayer money, driving 2 different government institutions into bankruptcy, and only now, after a long time of me, Nate the lawyer, and Black conservative perspective putting the pressure on her, has this become a national story. Only now has this become an issue. Only after she took it one step too far and ended up taking money from the taxpayer and throwing it into her nonprofit, which doesn't even file the required forms to become a legal nonprofit, has she actually been investigated for anything. And even that is a slow-moving case. But she is angry. She is mad about it.
But everything we do for the people. But we under attack. We getting scrutinized in the media. For what? Loving on the people? Showing them that they matter to us? We going through the fires for y'all.
Again, we are beyond parody. If this were a character in a TV show, if this was a corrupt representation of a mayor on your screen, you would say, not realistic, can't believe it, can't buy it, don't support it, this show's too fake, too over the top, but it's real. That's actually her. She's saying that she stayed in the Four Seasons for the people. That was just her loving on the people because she loves her constituents and she does everything for Dalton, which, by the way, is going to make the story from a week later, which is only a couple of days ago, all that much more funny because of this meeting wasn't really open to the public for public scrutiny and public comment, but the next one was, and you're going to see how much Tiffany A. Henyard loves the people in the city of Dalton. You're going to see how much she loves her constituents over in the Thornton Township because it's absurd and ridiculous. And of course, Tiffany A. Henyard, amidst all of these ridiculous scandals, was invited to the White House to go meet with President Biden in a mayor's summit because no matter what else, no matter what she actually does in the office, no matter her actual legitimate criminal history of breaking into vehicles that she had before she decided to up her game and just loot the treasury directly instead of stealing from the people's cars, she got honored because she's a strong black woman of color, mayor of color. Oh my God, shouldn't we support her?
Y'all should be ashamed of yourself. Y'all black. Y'all are black. And y'all sitting up here beating and attacking on a black woman that's in power. Y'all should be ashamed of yourself.
What, did you think I was joking? Did you think I was exaggerating? Did you think that she wasn't going to go there? She is not only saying that she's a black woman in power, therefore you need to fall in line, you need to obey her, you need to let her incinerate the township's money, incinerate the city of Dalton's money, but you need to rubber stamp it because you're black. And honestly, are you really black if you don't support the looting of the treasury? Are you really black if you push back against what Tiffany A. Henyard is spending? Are you really black if you're concerned about the fiscal solvency of Dalton and of the Thornton Township? No, according to Tiffany A. Henyard. Absurd, ridiculous, insane, playing the race card as per usual. It's what a lot of these people do when they're backed into a corner, and this is no different.
Dalton's difficulties got worse in recent weeks with water main breaks. Henyard blames on trustee budget cuts.
So as we discussed, I think in the original Tiffany A. Henyard video, nothing is getting done. You have streets that are not getting paved, a water main that gets broken, and Tiffany A. Henyard is blaming the board of trustees as the people responsible for this because they're not paying the bills. But the thing is, they're allocating the money, she's just spending it on all these different crazy things, and they warned her in the past that they would run out of money for everyday maintenance of the city, and she ignored that.
But I shouldn't have to sit up here and break all this down.
And talked about how she shouldn't have to justify what she's spending.
Then 4 people were shot and injured last week, leaving nerves frayed, and Henyard's opponents pointing out her sizable security detail.
Now, they also talked about crime rising in Dalton. You had a shooting where 4 people were shot in front of this AutoZone, and then the police chief comes out and he says, hey, look, you cut our budget. That's a big problem.
It's unfortunate that politics are being played, but what has happened is $1 million out of my budget has been cut because of politics.
But the thing is, the reason why they cut $1 million out of the budget is because Tiffany A. Henyard has driven the township, this is the city of Dalton, into a deficit of $5 million or $6 million as of right now. And one of the biggest line items of that deficit is the $1 million extra that she is being paid to have her own personal security detail made up of police officers.
We're not saying the police is not doing a good job. What we're saying is you're assigning all of them to be with you when they should be out here protecting the residents so we can all feel safe.
So they tried to take away that money to get her to reduce her detail, which again is $1 million more than the previous person that was in this position. And that takes away from officers on the streets. And to me, that seems perfectly reasonable. And the reason why the police chief is singing the praises of Tiffany A. Henyard is because Tiffany A. Henyard, without the approval of the board of trustees, actually fired the previous police chief.
We needed those officers to be on the street fighting crime. And instead, we have several officers that are riding around protecting America.
At least 2 and as many as 4 officers at a time, he says.
Because he was speaking out against her.
Well, we got the mayor here, meeting with the president of the United States. Everyone's seen the picture. That's a big deal. That is great promotion for this city, for this town.
So first of all, this guy right here is obviously a plant from Tiffany A. Henyard. This is somebody that she wanted to be here to speak on her behalf. It's probably a friend, if not a relative, because in no way, shape, or form are you going to hear about her staying at the Four Seasons in Atlanta, doing nothing for the taxpayer, staying at New York City hotels to the cost of $13,000, 5-star hotels in Vegas, burning $70,000 over the course of only a couple of months, and then you're going to say, wow, she got a selfie next to Joe Biden. Fake person, I'm calling him out, totally staged, totally made up, ridiculous and absurd in every possible way.
Ladies and gentlemen, be civil, do things right, think of the residents. You are here to represent the residents and not yourself.
Now, they show this one person with an accent. I'm guessing he is of African origin in that accent, and he's the one criticizing her. But if you think about it, there should be way more people at this meeting criticizing Tiffany A. Henyard. It makes all the sense in the world. Remember, even though they elected her before they knew that much information about her, they actually voted her out in a recall, only because of the actions of one judge that invalidated the legality of the recall. Is Tiffany A. Henyard still in office in the Dalton city? That's the only reason why. They voted her out. They wanted her out of this position. And yet, there doesn't seem to be a lot of people coming out to speak out against her. I wonder why that is. I wonder if Tiffany A. Henyard, who has shown no moral standards at all whatsoever, did something to kind of bolster the numbers in her direction. Did something to keep out the angry people from lashing out against her in public in this way.
What happened when you tried to go upstairs to the board meeting?
The security guard won't let me up. He just stands at the bottom of the stairs like this.
Well, thank you, resident, for answering that question, because it turns out Tiffany A. Henyard not interested in public comment, not interested in public criticism, and in this particular meeting that I believe took place a week later, but there is a possibility that she was doing something similar in the Dalton meeting. Remember, she has a record of locking out Thornton Township members of the offices in order to prevent them from criticizing her, locking out the Board of Trustees in Dalton to prevent them from criticizing her, locking out an accountant, not even a political position, because the accountant was criticizing her, because that's what she does. And in this particular incident, she hired private security or a bouncer in order to force people who were trying to come into the meeting to criticize her to not be able to speak. In fact, this person likely committed false imprisonment because he redirected these people into the basement, even though the meeting was being held where the meetings always are being held. So total ridiculousness in every possible way.
The sign outside its headquarters says, "Welcome to Thornton Township, people working with people." But when residents showed up last night to speak at a public board meeting, they got anything but a warm welcome.
When I arrived, there was security here. He was standing at the bottom of the stairs, preventing anybody from going up to the boardroom. I asked him if the meeting was downstairs. He replied, yes.
So I just want to be clear about what went down right here. This is not a miscommunication. This is not an error or anything like that. Tiffany A. Henyard and company decided that it was appropriate during the course of this public meeting to have a security guard block off the public who was supposed to be asking questions during the meeting from asking those questions, and then redirected them to a different part of the building under false pretenses where they could be held until the end of the meeting. This is called false imprisonment. This is not just a misnomer or a trick or anything like this. This is a crime. These people are criminals, and they should be investigated as such.
Stephanie Wiedemann and a handful of other residents wanted to speak directly to Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard, also the mayor of Dalton, who's generated controversy for spending hundreds of thousands of tax dollars on trips, police security, billboards, and her own personal charity.
I'm just curious to see who makes the decisions about how our tax dollars are being spent.
Yeah, sounds perfectly reasonable. This woman's incinerating your money. You want to question her on that incineration. She's not even providing receipts to the public. She's actually now blocking FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, to prevent people from looking into what she's doing, because she realized that the problem with her financial statements weren't the financial statements themselves. They were the fact that you could see them, and this is creating all kinds of problems for the taxpayers. So you go to question her, and guess what? You're forced into the basement.
But they never got that chance. After being blocked from going to the boardroom upstairs, they were sent to the basement where they were told the township board meeting would be held. It wasn't. They asked for a sign-up sheet for public comment, never got it. And before they knew what had happened, the 4-minute meeting upstairs was over, and Henyard was gone, without hearing from her constituents.
So the residents, the public, the people who are supposed to be able to speak during the public commentary portion of it, are herded into the basement. They're lied to in order to be put in there, and Tiffany A. Henyard has the meeting only go for 4 minutes total because she could not face scrutiny. She could not face the crowd. She probably was going to double down on that she's a strong black woman who doesn't need no public comment, but in reality, nothing could be weaker, nothing could be more cowardly, and yet again, she is able to get away with this.
And not only were the residents shut out, so was a local newspaper reporter who came here to cover the meeting.
I was told by a security guard that I was not allowed upstairs where the boardroom meeting is.
Josh Bootsma of the Lansing Journal says residents deserve to know how elected officials are spending their money.
Now, Henyard also kicked out a member of the media, as you just heard right there, so add more First Amendment violations to this situation. Again, they're forcing these people into the basement. That's false imprisonment. That's ridiculous and absurd, but it actually goes an even further step beyond this.
Even Thornton Township trustee Chris Gonzalez, a frequent Henyard critic, was ordered out of the boardroom until the meeting began. Do you think any laws were broken last night by the way they handled the public?
Well, definitely. I mean, if somebody wants to speak, it's a public meeting, it's a public building, they should be able to come in.
So yeah, here you have the one Thornton Township Board of Trustee member that opposes Tiffany A. Henyard, somebody who is likely to be replaced before she is, and they ordered him out of the room until the meeting began, so he could not say anything, so he could not have any input on this, so he wouldn't notice that the public was being barred from this public meeting. doing. Tiffany A. Henyard is unbelievably criminal, unbelievably absurd, and the story gets more and more absurd every time we revisit it. In fact, there are other things that I haven't even talked about. I may have to go look a month back in order to cover it, like her trying to address all of the allegations by addressing almost none of them on social media, because this is what this woman is about. She's insane in every possible way, and we need to shine the spotlight on her until she faces some criminal charges, until she's out of office, because this is an embarrassment for our entire country. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Tiffany A. Henyard doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Till next time.